bio of the panelists is in your program. I may serve as the moderator, but there's nothing moderate about their knowledge, their experience, and passion about the areas of their expertise. So, one by one, starting with Cornell Cruz. Cornell, would you please share very briefly, each of you, updates on your agency, challenges and victories, and perhaps some tools with which we can address sustainable and systemic changes and solutions.
And thank you, Marcia, and good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here with you today. I am the Executive Director, Cornell Cruz Jr., Executive Director of the Community Reinvestment Alliance of Florida. We are now a statewide organization. Our organization is a membership nonprofit organization. What we do is ensure the financial institutions do what they're supposed to do as far as the Community Reinvestment Act of 1977. The banks are required to reinvest in low to moderate income areas, as well as nonprofits, affordable housing, social services, and small businesses. And we try to make sure that we make them do that here in our area, as well as we ensure that you have the education in order to use the Community Reinvestment Act correctly, and we build those collaborations and partnerships. So we have a couple of things that we like to work on because we think that everything is connected. We think social services is connected, to transportation is connected, affordable housing is connected, dealing with small businesses and small business development is connected. Transportation is connected. All of these things are connected to our well-being and how we do in our communities. So we encourage the banks and try to get them to expand on what the minimum requirement is and develop a maximum requirement. Now, when I speak to a bank president about our issues, whether it be sea level rise, affordable housing, DEI, or income inequality, the first thing the president always says to me is, well, Cornell, why do you always come to us? And I have a simple answer. When Willie Sutton in the 1920s was robbing banks, they asked him why he robbed banks. His answer was, because that's where the money is. So that's why I go to them to help them understand how important their investment is in our community and how they can also help with all these items that we need done in our community, from affordable housing to sea level rise to climate gentrification and so on. So a couple of things that we work on specifically is community benefits agreements. We actually have one with Truist Bank. I sit on that board of the Community Advisory Board for Truist Bank. We have one coming up very, very shortly, as a matter of fact, next week, where we're going to be talking with another bank about a community benefits agreement and how they can better their investment in the community. And so we bring up these issues, and I tell the folks who are attending, as a matter of fact, one of our attendees is on the stage here at Kim, no idea should not be suggested, none. They want to be a product of the community, they want to work with us in the community, then they need to invest in the community. So we're going to bring up some innovative items and be innovative in the ideas that we bring to the community benefits agreement. And then I assume we're going to talk about later, we're going to talk about appraisals in the community, particularly the African American community. And one thing that's near and dear to my heart that I'm very, very passionate about that goes to affordable housing is corporate buying of housing in our state. You may have missed it, but 60 Minutes just did a piece on it about Wall Street and hedge funders buying large amounts of single-family homes and condominiums and then renting them out in perpetuity at astronomical rates. And that's something we need to fight, and I have some suggestions on how we can better do this, because this is unsustainable. Just a quick fact, 1 in every 6 closings are done by hedge funders or Wall Street. In November and December, 1,800 homes were closed on in Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County by a hedge funder. 1,800. That's a huge number, and that's depriving me and everyone else in here the opportunity to own property. Property ownership has been in existence since the Pilgrims came. That's where power lies, and that's how you build generational wealth. And we're having it slowly but surely, I'll take that back, not slowly, but surely being taken away from us. So we'll also discuss those items.
Thank you, Cornell. Thank you. Dr. McGuire.
Hey, good morning. I'm Rebecca McGuire. So I am the administrator of the Homeless Initiative Partnership. And what we do is we are the coordinator of the Homeless Continuum of Care Board, of which we are very honored to have Senator Nan Rich as our chair. We coordinate most everything that has to do with homelessness in Broward County. We fund over $35 million of services annually. And if you look around the room, you see all our wonderful partners, incredible partners that help us actually address and deal with over 10,000 individuals experiencing homelessness here in Broward County every single year. And just listen to that number for a second. 10,000 unduplicated people in Broward County experiencing homelessness. I can tell you after COVID-19, that actually went up. First-time individuals who are experiencing first-time homelessness went up, and individuals who were chronically homeless have really suffered, and it's been very difficult. One of the things that we do is we work with our partners to house individuals. And why homelessness, you're probably asking yourself, why is homelessness here talking today? Well, because affordable housing is pivotal to getting individuals off the street and getting them housed. We get about $14 million a year from HUD to house individuals experiencing homelessness, and we have to abide by three very important elements. We have to make sure that the unit passes a housing quality inspection. We have to make sure that there's rent reasonableness, and we have to make sure, and this is the most important thing, fair market rent. You're going to hear that word a lot because that has gone up, as you heard in the doctor's presentation today. I actually thought it had gone up a little bit more than what you did, so you gave me a little glimmer of hope there. But 45%, if you look at the one bedrooms, the studios, the one bedrooms are in huge demand. And if you saw the variance of what's available, and you think at any given point in time here in Broward County, we're working to house 2,500 individuals, this is a tough job. And this is a hard job. And everybody calls our office and says, what are you doing about the people on Broward Boulevard that are on the street? What are you doing? Well, we're working to house them. You'll hear us talk about the Housing First model. That is a great model where you take people from the street and you actually put them in a unit. We used to have a housing readiness model where we got people ready to be housed. But if you don't have a place to live, if you don't have a safe place to go home, I know where I'm going tonight to sleep, and I'm sure most everybody in this room does too. But if you don't have somewhere to lay your head at night, how can you think about your substance use issue? How can you think about keeping your kids safe? How can you think about getting a job? It's really hard. And it's gotten incredibly more difficult because of our rate increases here in Broward County. So this is absolutely awesome that's happening today. I am so thrilled to be a part of this and to be a part of the Pillars of Prosperity. And so just thank you so much. And I have a really quick sidebar shout out. We have an outreach officer in Davie. She does street outreach. She's ignoring me right now, but that's okay. But Officer Chastain, Officer of the Year for the state of Florida. And I can tell you, she blows my phone up all the time because she's out there all hours of the day calling me, listen, I found this person, they're ready to be housed, how do we get them off the street? So hats off to you, you rock. And just thanks so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Kimberly Henderson. I'm president and CEO of Neighborhood Housing Services of South Florida. We're a community development organization, and we're community-based. We don't work alone. We're actually part of a national network of 300 affiliates, and here in Florida there are 20 affiliates, and here in South Florida there are 5 affiliates. And what that means is we bring a really powerful brain trust to the issues of affordable housing and community development and neighborhood revitalization. Our organization is a one-stop shop primarily focused on homeownership. You can come to us. We're a HUD-certified housing counseling agency and get homebuyer training, homebuyer education, rental counseling, the full spectrum of counseling to include foreclosure counseling. We're also a lender. We actually originate loans, and we work with many of our partners to include JP Morgan Chase. I like to think of us as a lending emporium. We work with the county in that we connect our clients to available down payment assistance programs. And we're also a builder. We build houses ground up We rehab houses with the whole goal of basically being one place that a consumer can come and get everything that they need to be ready. Now, the thing that we are that I think will matter the most with respect to what the crisis that we're talking about is we're U.S. Treasury certified development financial institution. And what that allows us to do is accept money, whether it be hedge fund money, social impact money, federal dollars, or state and local dollars, and then quickly redeploy that money back out to low and moderate income persons in the form of a loan, but in the form of a loan that is done in a way that it is affordable to that end user. We can do non-traditional financing of energy efficiency retrofits, of apartment buildings, of housing. I truly believe, as effective as CDFIs have been in this country, we have not really fully utilized the CDFI to solve the problem of affordable housing across the country and here in South Florida. My biggest challenge is that we have over 2,000 people coming to us annually. We pre-approve about a fourth of those people, and they simply cannot secure a contract. And they are in a market segment under 400,000 where they are competing with, as my colleague here said, institutional investors who are snapping up homes, billionaires, and snowbirds. It's really unfair. And I think we have to look at affordable housing, as was said by Dr. Murray and others, as an economic development tool, but it's also kind of a window to our collective souls of what kind of country do we want to live in? Do we want to live in a country where people can aspire to be something other than where they may have been born and have social mobility? Or do we want the continuing hollowing out of the middle class and just have rich and poor, and the instability that that can bring to our democracy? So that is my passion, my interest, and I'm glad to be here today to further talk about these topics. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kim.
Hello, good morning. I'm Kristi Hill. I'm an administrator with Broward County's Family Success Administration. We run a few programs that help with rental and utility assistance. Our main program, Emergency Assistance, helps with rental and utility assistance, and that is funded through Broward County's general fund. We also, since COVID has occurred, we have had an additional about 8 different programs that we've had to facilitate to help people in need of rent and utility assistance due to COVID. So since April 1st of 2020, we have made over 33,000 payments in a total of over $78 million to households to help people who are at risk of homelessness. One of those programs is currently underway. It's the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. We are in the process of continuing to spend that money as we have people applying for it and people who are eligible. Some of the issues we've run into is, everything we've talked about here. We have people applying for assistance and they are receiving notices that their rent is going up, that they cannot afford that, and then they need to be able to move. So our program, we're constantly, through the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, constantly modifying, analyzing, expanding that program to meet the needs that we see at present in the community. So we have we are helping people with relocation assistance, paying security deposits, first and last month's rent. With doing that, of course, people have encountered that there are no places that they can find. So again, we had to modify the program, and now we are putting people in hotels while they are looking for some type of affordable housing. So we do have a number of people now in hotels. We are presently in the process of implementing assistance to people who have received a rent increase, and we're considering that rent increase that they've received as a COVID hardship. So people can come to us and apply. It's, like I said, it's currently being implemented, should be implemented shortly. They can come to us and apply and say that, provide proof that their rent is increasing. And we will pay for at least 3 months of assistance for them, where they can then, of course, try to find something that's more affordable or determine if they are able to stay in the unit that they're in with the increased rent. So again, we are constantly trying to analyze and staying within the guidelines of all of our funding to be able to meet the needs that are out there in the community. So, happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Kristi.
Good afternoon, Fran Esposito, Broward Partnership for the Homeless, and with the help of every single one of the providers that are seated at the tables across this room right here, right now, they have helped us be able to run the 498 emergency shelter beds that we run both at the Central Homeless Assistance Center in Fort Lauderdale, right on, friends,
Yay.
and the 268 beds that are at the north site in Pompano Beach. And let me just digress for just a moment and go back to one of the comments made about the homeless and the challenges and all that. Nobody's really spoken to COVID, and we don't need to because we've heard it all. But the bottom line is those individuals that you're seeing on the streets is because the shelter system was shut down, all right? We're talking about in 2020, all of us were down at 25% of residency, all right? So 2 years later, where are we? Essentially between, what do you say, Rebecca, 65, 70%. We don't know if we're going back to 100%, but let me just put that aside. What you've learned today, and what we all knew coming in here, is housing ends homeless. That's the bottom line. So, Broward Partnership moved from being an emergency provider to becoming a housing provider, and we did that many years ago. Today, we run 6 off-site, what we call scattered site housing programs, which means the individual tenant is in their own unit. These units are scattered throughout Broward County. Between the 6 programs, 3 of them are rapid rehousing, 3 of them are permanent supportive housing. Permanent supportive housing houses the chronic population in this community. So, all totaled right now, we run between 140 and 150 units, housing hundreds of men and women and children. But what's the real challenge? To finish building 7 on 7th, the first low-income housing tax credit project to come into Broward, specifically for the homeless, 60% of AMI and below, the entire project. It's only 72 units, but let me tell you this. 36 of those units are for our workforce housing folks. This is a mixed-use residential community. The other 36 for the formerly homeless. But every attribute, every supportive service that we're going to bring, whether it be case management, medical care, dental care, financial literacy training, all of the services that we're going to provide there, and there has a fitness center, an interactive library, children's space, all of that will be available to all the residents. And in addition to the amenities, we're going to have a remote workforce technologically lab on the site. So those individuals will be able to work from home now, all right? So there'll be all of the outfitting for them to be able to do that. And again, those services and supports are going to be available to everyone that's in the building. So where are we right now with it? We broke ground in August 2021, and we're really hoping with our partner Green Mills, you talk about a 3P, and they're here today. We're the nonprofit, we're the service provider. To everything you heard Ann and others talk about today, the nonprofit itself cannot take on that level of risk. We weren't built for it. We have the capacity to deliver the services, and that's what we're going to do with the help of Green Mills and every one of the partners that are in this room today, because you talk about a 3P, it's the county, the city, local support, business support, and most important for the success of this project was the homeowner associations. The Central Homeless Assistance Center is bordered by 4 of them, and we got the support to be able to do it. Thank you.
Wow. Fran, thank you. I'm just going to throw a question to each of you on some things that perhaps the audience doesn't know. Fran, you are the shaman, or you have landlords that are personal friends, I think, by now. But what I did want to say is...
That's really interesting you would say that, because about landlords and how do we get them,
yes.
like anything else, it's about personal relationships, all right? When we first got into housing, the first thing we did was, quite frankly, recruit a member of the Fort Lauderdale Realtors Association to join our board of directors. That was one. Then we started with the management companies, all right? So that is how we've created the relationships. All told, we have about 70 landlords right now, but that's changing all across the county, because given COVID, so many of the landlords have sold their properties, turned them over. That's why we've got all those lease terminations going on and all of the challenges that we're seeing. So bottom line, it's about relationships and building the trust that the tenants are going to be well supervised, well cared for. Any damages or concerns are all going to be addressed by a case management staff that is available 24 hours a day, and they will be paid on time, reliably.
And nobody builds trust better than you, Fran. So thank you.
Nobody what? I'm sorry?
Builds trust better than you. There was a comment that you made, Cornell. We keep hearing the term appraisal bias. Not sure how many of you are familiar with that phrase, but it affects property values for affordable housing, and especially those properties that are being purchased by people of color. Cornell, can you talk about appraisal bias, maybe identify it a little bit for the audience to know some of what we're up against?
Okay, so there's been several instances that have been documented all over the web and in other areas about appraisal bias, particularly towards African Americans. I will cite one instance in Jacksonville. The couple was an interracial couple. They went to have an appraisal, the first appraisal done. The appraiser came in and lowered their appraisal amount by about 35% from the rest of the neighborhood, and with similar houses, with similar sized homes. So she couldn't figure out what the problem was. So she went to another appraiser and got virtually the same thing. So finally, someone mentioned to her, remove anything that indicates that you're African American in this home, and move all pictures, statues, art, anything that might indicate that you are African American in this home, and call another appraiser and see what happens. Called another appraiser after she removed all of those items from the home, made sure that she was not there. Her husband is white, so everything concerning whiteness was put into the home, and they got the exact price that they deserved. This is going on all over the country. There are right now approximately 78,000 appraisers in this country. Less than 1.7% are black. I had a meeting with the HUD secretary, and I asked them to address this issue as well. Maybe put some programs in place in order to bring in more African American appraisers. But we shouldn't have to do that. That's the thing that irks me. We should not have to do that. We should have fair and equal. It shouldn't matter what color I am, I am, or what color my spouse is to live in that home. I should get the fair market value for my home. And when we do that as far as appraisal bias is concerned, do we devalue the amount of the home? Therefore, we devalue the wealth of that particular family. And in this country, as we know, the housing gap is more now in 2022 than it was in 1965. It is more now. Aren't we supposed to be progressing? Isn't that not what's supposed to be the issue? But it seems like we're going backwards.
Thanks, Cornell. And I leave that very, very heavy with you. Kristi, what income levels do you assist in your agency, in your program? Is there an income maximum?
For our regular emergency assistance program that we normally run, no, there is no income level. They just have to prove that they had a loss of income of at least 10% due to a reason that we consider to be no fault of their own, and that the other main requirement is that they have sustainability moving forward. So if we pay for that month, 2 months, or 3 months of rent that they fell behind, and they can prove that they can pay moving forward, then we're able to assist them.
And it doesn't matter how much rent it is?
We do use the fair market rent value. However, again, we acknowledge that that's irrelevant at this point.
Right.
So we do have means to make what we call special consideration requests. So those are approved without a problem to be above the fair market rent.
This is comforting to hear, because COVID was not a respecter of anyone, regardless of income
Absolutely.
or where they lived. I mean, it struck them. And so it's comforting to know that that was taken into consideration.
And I will add, the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, which is funded through the Department of Treasury, they do have an income. You have to be at 80% or below the area median income.
Okay.
For that. So.
Oh, right. So from that, right. Dr. McGuire, is there a distinction between the populations that you serve?
Yes. So at the Homeless Initiative Partnership, we serve individuals who are literally homeless. HUD has 4 distinct categories by which they classify people on the continuum of homelessness as categories 1, 2, 3, and 4. We serve 1 and 4. 1 is that you are living in a place not meant for human habitation. 4 means that you are running from domestic violence or stalking, and you're on the street and need someplace to be. 2 and 3, which Kristi's shop, our partner agency, helps serve, are those who are at what we would consider at-risk, couch surfing, those individuals who are very much a subject of the lack of affordable housing. They're living doubled up with their families. The population we serve are those individuals who either have found themselves with COVID, first time on the street or first time in one of our shelters, families living in cars, individuals living under bridges. You'd be amazed at the resourcefulness of individuals when they have to find some place to live and they have to survive. You would absolutely be amazed and in wonder, and it really makes you understand the resiliency of human beings. But we really, in what we're doing right now, is really working with those individuals to get them from the street. We will house somebody from the street to a unit. That's the Housing First model. And we've done that several times with the help of all of the partners. Fran, her team, Lisa Vecchi, their team, Lily, her team. It's just what we do. And we've found, because of what Fran had mentioned, our lack of a shelter space right now, COVID decimated our system of care almost. It was really scary. People would rather sleep under a bridge than come into one of our shelters because of the congregate care setting and how scared they were about getting COVID. And yeoman's job by our providers, doing social distancing, making people wear masks, just helping educate, understand, pushing vaccinations. I would say 45% of our homeless individuals on the street are vaccinated. That may not seem a lot, but it's pretty good. When you think about trying to track them down, especially when we had to do 2 vaccines instead of just 1, that was a challenge, but we did it in partnership with the Department of Health. So, to your point, what we're serving are those individuals who have had a very rough time of it, and families. Nothing breaks your heart more than to see our future, our kids being educated and living in a car. So we've talked a lot about the financial cost today, but I think the emotional cost is sometimes what's left on the sidewalk. And we really need to understand what it does to a family, to a soul, to an individual when you do not have a place to call home. It shouldn't be just a place. Home should not be something that's a luxury that only a percentage of our population is allowed to have.
And I bet everybody in here today is here because of the knowledge of what that emotional cost is and what we can do to begin to save that, to begin to roll that back, and begin to make our county and our state far more solid and sustainable. Speaking of sustainable, I wonder, Kim, if you could tell us, so we know it's expensive, we know it's difficult. Cornell spoke a little bit about financial institutions, the difficulty to get a mortgage. Can you share with us a little bit and briefly how you make sure that someone is ready for homeownership and that they're able to sustain the homeownership?
I think probably the best way you can do that is by going over the family budget with them and then making sure that the debt burden is below the thresholds, which is typically all in under 45%, and helping people to understand that you will probably be pre-qualified for much more than you should purchase. So you may be pre-qualified for $400,000, but if you stop and think about all the things you like to do and need to do, particularly if you have children, then maybe you should be buying in the $300,000 range. And then, you know, I've been in this almost my entire, certainly professional life. One of the things that people don't realize is that once you get that house, you're an asset owner. So then you have to understand how to protect the asset. I was originally on the commercial real estate side. You do that on the commercial. You set aside money because you know you're going to have major capital improvements. You know you're going to have minor improvements that have to be made through your ownership of that asset. The exact same with the house. It's a smaller dollar amount, but you need to set aside money every single month. I always say 5 to 10%. So when the roof comes off, you have the money. So when you have problems with your air conditioning, you know, you can take care of it. And
So education.
It's the education piece.
Pre-ownership
which
education.
is why having these HUD-certified housing counseling agencies like us, and I see the Urban League people here, is so important. And for policymakers, we need to be better funded. We were just told that we couldn't hire people unless they passed a national exam. That immediately created a shortage nationwide of housing counselors. And it put a strain on our budgets because to attract people, we had to pay significantly more.
So what I'm hearing, just to sort of recap, is between accessibility and sustainability, both homeowners and renters, the first thing we need is affordable housing, one way or the other.
Right.
And I throw this to all my colleagues who are involved in this war, in this battle. The second thing is we need education. We need education not just for, say, homeownership, but also from what the services that Fran, you mentioned, and also yourself, Kristi. There has to be an education of people who we bring in off the street. We can't bring them in off the street, house them, and then put them back on the street without them having gone through some type of emancipation from what helped put them there in the first place. And I think it is essential that we remember this needs to be a component of everything that we build. Bricks and mortar alone and good feelings and intentions are not going to be enough for us to win this war.
I think it's important to acknowledge, I worked in the homeless service system as well, and it is not connected to the housing counseling system very often. Yet your renters, your prospective renters, will have to face the same credit criteria of people who are stably housed. And having looked at many credit reports filled with evictions, low scores, judgments, that is kryptonite to the vast majority of landlords. What the financial services industry says is that if you have a low credit score, it's low character. And most of us don't understand that, because if we did, we'd organize our finances so that our credit scores aren't low. Many of us are just disorganized. And so getting people to understand your credit score is almost as important as your weight and blood pressure numbers in the marketplace. It really is. I had to place homeless people. I did it on the strength of the fact that I knew all the property managers and I'm effective at begging. But I want people to be able to have choice, and you have choice when you have a good credit score, whether you're renting or trying to buy a house.
Thank you, Kim. I think that wraps us up. Again, thank you all. The Broward Housing Council thanks you. On behalf of the Racial Equity Task Force, I thank you. And to the Commissioners, Senator Rich, to all of you here today, heartfelt thanks. Let's go do this. Thank you.